Appreciate everybody being here. We're going to roll with this thing. Appreciate everybody being here. We've got about an hour, and I'll kind of quarterback what the next hour or so looks like. And I really want to start from the perspective of why and not what, because I think as entrepreneurs, whenever we looking at a new strategy or how to be impactful with the business, how to have growth, it's always from the perspective of what do we do? What marketing strategy do we need to do? How do we need to negotiate? Can we implement deal structure? How do we raise money? All of these things so that we can create growth, right? But I think it's important to start with why. Why are we doing these things? Why is it important to us? And so in terms of this call specifically, that's what I want to start with. Why do we do these apprentice spotlights? Well, it's for a few reasons, but namely, I think it's important that we share the wins, because I think a lot of people start off in a position of really not knowing what to do. They're thinking about strategy. And really, it's the belief system and the commitment that should come first. And I'll tell this story really quick. Before I became successful in the real estate investing business, I had this idea in my head because I was 22 years old at the time. I was putting out bandit signs every Friday night / early Saturday morning, and I was pulling them every Monday morning before the code officials could come out and fine me for these signs, right? And so I had this idea in my head that I'm going to do this business or I'm going to die trying. And if it came to the point of I'm going to be on my deathbed and I'm 102 years old, hopefully, and my family's around and my friends are around, number one, because I was good to them, not because they felt obligated. I wanted to be able to say that I really, really tried, that I really went for it. And if I never got to the point of actually getting to my first deal and the doctor came in and said, Brad, I'm very sorry to tell you that you're terminally ill. You have two weeks to live. That my next question to him is going to be, well, do you have a house that you're hoping to sell today? Because I've been trying to do this for 80 years and I haven't been successful yet. And so I hope that you have a house that you'll sell today. Now, luckily that didn't happen. It took me 8 months to hit my first deal. That was 8 months of blood, sweat, tears, and toil, and a lot of frustration. And looking at that versus the spotlight that we have today, I think really shows the vantage point of how things can be different if you have a good process. Because I had to learn a lot of what not to do first. But then I see people like Brandon come into the business and do 300K in gross profit in 7 months, part-time, as a college student. And I look at it like, this is just so much fun, number one. But the trajectory that people get on when they follow the process that took me years to create, people are often at my year 6 in month 6. Okay. Because it took me about 6 years to get to the point where I was transacting every month. You know what I mean? I was a slow start in the business. And I look at that struggle as looking back, not during the time that it happened, but looking back, I look at that as some of my greatest blessings because I know what it's like to struggle better than most. So if you've been in the business for any amount of time and you're really not sure how to find deals, you're not really sure how to negotiate deals, where does the money come from? You just don't know where to start. You have no system or process and you're just stuck. I know exactly what that's like, but it doesn't have to be that way. Okay. And the reason that we have these calls is to showcase a working process, number one. Number two, to celebrate the wins. And for you guys to begin to get some vision and some belief. And I had my first mentor, David Alexander, shout out to you. He's become a great friend of mine over the years. And I think about the times that I would go to his events and I'd be hanging on by a thread because, I was doing 1, 2, 3 deals a year at the time. And I would be around people like Jerry, who did 31 deals in a 12-month period. And I thought, oh my gosh, if I can do 31 deals in my entire life, I'll be happy with that, But being around those people strengthened my belief system and gave me a little bit more gas in the tank to keep going. And so I hope that for some of you guys tonight, you can take this time and see this growth that Brandon's had and say, well, maybe capture a little bit of if he can do it, maybe I can do it too. Because there were times in my career that's really all I had to hold on to, that if they can do it, maybe, just maybe I can do it. Right. So let me introduce Brandon. Brandon's been with us. Well, he has a background and a starting point that's a little bit different than anybody else that we've ever had on this call. And I would say probably anybody else that will ever happen again. So take a minute, man, kind of tell us your background and we'll just dive into it.
Yeah. So basically, I think it was probably mid 2022 or probably the beginning of that. Y'all reached out to me on a website called Upwork. I think y'all needed some video editing done for the curriculum. So I started off editing, their original curriculum, like the course videos that they go through. And so, I edited a good bit of those. I think we jumped into doing some like social media management as well. And then, during the middle of that, I think y'all invited me to come to one of the mastermind events. That was the one in Nashville. That was the first one I attended. And so that was definitely eye-opening for me. I was there taking photos and the big thing doing the testimonial videos. So, I come there, I thought it was gonna be a cool trip to go to Nashville. And next thing I know, I'm recording Tony and a bunch of other apprentices, the six and seven figure earners, and just one after another. It's just Tony saying, okay, tell me about your first deal. How long have you been in the program? And it's just one after another, just people saying, oh, I've been in here for 2 months, made about 100 grand on my first deal, 80 grand on my first deal, bought five houses in the first couple months. It's just one after another, just going, all these testimonials back to back to back. And so I don't know who I sat down with. It was either you or Casey, and I was just, all right, so like, what do y'all do exactly? And so like during the downtime, y'all were kind of explaining it to me. But it was kind of funny. But before I had all that proof of concept, I think I broke this to you a couple months ago. Um,
Yeah.
I've been video editing for a while, so I had all sorts of people reach out to me, a lot of crypto guys, some fitness influencers, and they're trying to get me to edit their course. And half of them are just scams, just trying to get money from people. So when you came along, I was like, oh look, another guru coming along. I'll just I'll make some money video editing for him, and I'll just go from there, just like the rest of
Yeah.
these people. But again, I went to that first mastermind, saw there was definitely some truth to it, that's for sure. And so yeah, here we are. I dove in. I was around it for, I'd say, probably a year and a half, 2 years, around all you guys. Through multiple, I guess, two, three events now. And then
Mhm.
dove in kind of head first this past summer.
Right on. So, whenever you came to Mastermind, were you looking at real estate? Was that on your radar at all, or what was your trajectory at that point?
During that, I was full time doing, I mean, I was obviously a college student, and that was probably like peak of me doing video editing and social media management. So by no means was it on my horizon. It was kind of my goal when I got out of college was to have enough money saved for me and my brother to buy like a quadplex. And so that was kind of like my goal, once I get out of college, I remember it was like $40,000 saved when I graduated college. It's kind of funny, to buy a quadplex, wherever I'm living, kind of house hack the way in. But I mean, I really didn't know any of this side. So that's a long way to say no. I was definitely not looking to get into real estate going there.
Yeah. So, but you still kind of had an idea of real estate pretty early on. Do you know when you started thinking about real estate first?
Well, I mean, my parents that they own a couple rental properties, so we kind of grew up, going there and doing some demos, like tearing down a fence or something like that. So we kind of always had like the idea of it. I thought I knew a lot about real estate just because I knew the rent payment was going to be higher than the mortgage payment, so I thought I knew a lot about it.
Well, that is important. That is a
Yeah,
good start because
yeah.
some people don't even get that far. But go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I knew that going in, but I guess I've been around it. My parents, they also own their own mortgage company. So I've heard a lot of terms. I think as a kid, I knew a lot of the terms, but didn't even know what they meant. So kind of coming here, it kind of opened me up to what it really means. So.
Right on, right on. So you said something there that I think was interesting. You said it was kind of funny the idea of needing $40,000 to get into a house hack situation. Looking back, why is that funny? And I know we'll get into these stories, but just from a bird's eye perspective, why is that funny now?
Um, I guess it's for two reasons. I set that goal, I think like freshman year of college. And I was literally sat down and did the math. I was like, okay, if I can earn, this much money a month, I'll have $40,000 by the end of it, and I can put, a down payment on a house or a, multifamily property and, rent it out. And so that was like my 4 year goal in college, was to earn $40,000. Um, I guess it's funny for two reasons, because, my first deal netted me, over $40,000. And, I still haven't spent, over 40 grand to get into a house. So, um, I guess I was wrong. I'm wrong on both accounts.
Well, that's okay. But it's interesting. I was young as a real estate guy. I started off as a realtor, but I don't think that I had the belief system that you did early on to think that I could be an investor as early as you. So, I did my first deal when I was 23 and I started looking at it at 22, but I was around builders and developers, people from my church, people that kind of took me under their wing, ran a model home for a couple of years and sold new construction. So, like, I had to warm up to the idea that I could actually do this. So, I guess, man, what made you feel like maybe you could do this enough to actually start? Because a lot of people think about it, but very few people actually begin implementation with it. So, what was that thought process for you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my first, I mean, I just had a lot of proof of concept a bit to sum that up. But at the start when I first met you guys, I wasn't really as confident as I was when I decided to jump in, that's for sure, just because I mean it was all new. I haven't learned any of the material yet, but I started off pretty high up as in, a confidence level just because I've seen all the other people do it. But then it was just kind of convincing myself that I could do it. And so,
Hmm.
seeing that many people being able to do it and going through the curriculum and actually, understanding it, not just, seeing other people, oh, that must be nice. Like they know how to do it. They're, something special. Just I guess, meeting people, seeing how everybody else does it. I definitely had to warm up to it over time. But it got to the point where, spending 2 grand a month on ads wasn't really going to keep me up at night. So that's kind of when I was, fine jumping in.
That's super cool, man. I think that that's so powerful because, you know, there's a saying, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. And I think that it's really important to have a peer group that's on the same path, right? And that's been super, super important in my life. And thinking about this, I think it's kind of fun that you went from filming the case study to being the case study, and to do that in the time frame that you've been able to do it. I think it's just so much fun. And the thing is, man, you're not even in your first year of implementation, and well, I'll make a prediction. I predict that Brandon will be the youngest seven-figure earner that we've had. And you've got about 2 years because we just gave what was or what is right now the youngest seven-figure award to Tyden, who's 24. So he went from zero to a million in 10 and a half months. That was 18 deals, and that was the last apprentice spotlight. So we're kind of on a path here of the young guns of IC. But I think it's just so much fun that you went from filming the case study to being the case study today, and we're just getting started. So whenever you began implementation and you really decided like, hey, it's time to start doing something, where did you start?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. So after the last mastermind, not the one that we just had in Florida, but the one in Murfreesboro,
Yeah.
I was talking to Caitlin, and she was talking about how they just kind of put up bandit signs and they get calls from it. So I don't remember when it was exactly, but I know it was right before. It was probably around May, this past year. I decided to put out like 30 because I was like really motivated. We had that mastermind in April. I was like, oh, okay,
Hmm.
go home, put out bandit signs. I think I put out about 30 bandit signs that just say, we buy houses cash in my college town. And I think come either June or July, I get, my first call from it. And I ended up buying that first deal. It was, two mobile homes on land. That was my first deal. Still pays me, $600 a month. And then, I think a couple weeks later, I got another call from it. And that was my second deal, which is literally minute drive from where I live now at college. It's a duplex that I bought, subject to um, that's a pretty long story there, but I bought two properties with about I don't know what that is, maybe $30 worth of advertising and bandit signs. So that was a pretty good start. And then I think maybe the end of July. It was right before I started my last semester. I started doing PPC marketing, just because my class load is a little bit lighter. I had time to be on the phone, and so I started PPC towards the end of July, I believe.
into July. So you put out, so you got motivated at Mastermind. You said, okay, it's time to implement. Let's roll with this. You put out how many bandit signs? 30?
Yeah, I think it was about 30 because I had a bunch left over. I bought like 100 and only wrote on 50 of them. And then I still had, a bunch left in my car when I was done going out, putting them up that night.
Okay, cool. So some people are kind of afraid to put out the bandit signs. There's a reason they're called bandit signs, you know, because they're illegal in most places. So like you're the bandit putting the sign out. But did that worry you at all, or was it just like business as usual because you're a college kid and you're up at 2 a.m. anyway?
I mean, yeah, I just went out. Yeah, I just went out at night. There wasn't too many people on the road, so I wasn't too worried about it, I guess. I've heard other people do it, so I haven't heard of anybody else getting arrested. So,
Yeah, I was terrified the first handful of times I did it, and I was up until the point that I was putting a sign out about, I don't know, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Uh, Police lights light up, pulls over. I'm like, there's no like trying to hide what I'm doing because I'm like in mid hammer with the hammer. You have like a 3 pound mallet and the sign right here, and I'm like in mid hammer. And he pulls over. He said, "Son, are these your signs?" I was like, "I guess so," you know. And he said, "Huh? You buy houses?" I'm like, I kind of squeaked, "Yes, sir." He said, "I've got a house that I need to talk to you about." He pulled over and hit the light so I wouldn't get hit. And so he could sell me his house. Now, we ended up not buying it. But at that point, I was not too terribly concerned about the bandit sign police. Um, all right, cool. So you have the first call come in. Tell me how that call went.
um, that was kind of funny. We were on the lake, and I was talking to my dad about it, and so he called me, and it's funny, like I had no idea really what I was talking about, and so he called me saying that he had back taxes on it, and I had no
Mm-hmm.
idea. He said that the house was he told me the house was going to get foreclosed on because he didn't pay his taxes. And so I thought, I was like, okay, that makes sense. But in reality, the back tax is a different thing. So I thought he had a mortgage on it. I didn't really know what he was talking about. And so I kind of, was talking with my parents about it and they kind of cleared it up for me. And so it was, I don't know, I think it was it was either Saturday or Sunday when I got that call, did the triage call with him and, went through the presentation. And, as soon as he was an older guy, life really wasn't going his way. And so once I talked to him,
Mm.
doing an agreement online, he, got, really scared, kind of fed up with it. And was like, no, I'm not going to get scammed out of this house. I was like, all right, that's fine. So we ended up driving down. It was about 40 minutes from my college town. So we ended up driving on Monday all the way down there. It's like 3.5, 4 hours to meet him in his RV in the Walmart parking lot where I papered that first house.
Wow. Okay, so it was two mobile homes on land, correct?
Yeah, yeah, and so he was renting them out, and so him and his wife used to live there, and she died, a couple, I think like 7, 10 years back, and so he's been renting it out forever. And then, I guess he just forgot to pay his taxes for the past couple of years, so
Mm.
the tenant actually bought those back taxes and was just hoping to, get the house out from under him. And so he was, smart enough to sell it, get some cash for him, and yeah.
Gotcha. So were they two double wides on one lot, or were they separately deeded, or who knows?
It's 2 acres. Well, I still don't know. I still not have not seen the inside of this property. I'll be honest with you.
I love that.
I think it's a mobile home because it's literally like plywood. Like you would laugh if I showed you a picture of it. And the other one, like it looked like it got like caught on fire. But all I know is it pays me $600 a month. The check's a lot prettier than the house, that's for sure.
That's
Uh,
all that matters. That's
yeah.
all that matters.
But
Some of the best deals we've had are deals that we wouldn't have been proud to show our friends. In fact, I remember one time I bought two houses for $7,500 for both of them, and I put the pictures on Facebook, and I got so much hate on those pictures. I remember one girl said, "I hope when the rats leave that the houses still stand." And I thought maybe I've got myself into a bad situation here because I'd already bought it. I'd already closed, and we ended up selling it to the neighbor behind us for behind them for 35K. And that was one of the first like cash hits that I had. But I thought, oh gosh, like maybe this is not. But it worked out. All right. So what did you buy it for? How did you buy it? And this is a long-term rental, so we kind of talked about that.
Yeah, so it already had the tenant in there, obviously. I think the contract price was like, I mean, I had a decent bit of cash saved up, so I was fine, kind of throwing some at it. I think it was all in, it was around $9,300,
Okay.
the property, and I had a at that price, obviously I can't retail it because of the condition of it. But at that price, you really can't go wrong with it. You can owner finance it, rent it out. At one point I had everything quoted to, tear everything down and put a new mobile home on it and retail out of it. That was my original plan.
Mm,
But the market wasn't the best there. So, just decided to keep that cash flow coming in.
gotcha. So tell me about the negotiation here because I remember some of my first negotiations and they were disastrous. Okay. Like I was so bad at negotiating. So do you remember what he started off at and how the negotiation went, how you landed on 9,300?
Yeah, so it originally started, I guess hopefully everybody in the call kind of knows that we don't really give offers. So, I kind of asked him, how much he was hoping to walk away with. I believe he started at, 15 grand. And then he obviously didn't have the money to pay the back taxes, which was like $4,300. And so all in, it was going to be around 19. I asked him about if that's the least you'd take. He went down to 10 plus those back taxes. So we're at like 14. And I said, I can do 10 if we can do it a different way. How about, some now, some after closing. So it was originally structured, 5 grand at closing and then $500 a month until paid, just, for the fun of it. Just
Hmm.
because rent would cancel out those payments. So I'd really only be in it for 5 grand plus the back taxes. And then we ran title. There ended up being like a $5,000 lien on the property that he didn't know about. So those later payments just disappeared. And it was just a dollar for dollar reduction. He didn't know about that lien. So I ended up buying it just for um, 5 grand plus those back taxes, so around $9,300. I guess, I guess I would have had to pay that 5 grand lien now that I think about it. So yeah, I guess it was around 14 now that I think about it.
Okay, cool. So did you pay the 5K lien or did we just leave it in place sub two?
No, I paid it off.
Okay, cool.
It was bearing. It was like $27 a day. It was bearing interest.
Oh, yeah. Interesting. Okay, cool. So all in all, in at say 15K, it's bringing in $600 per month and you haven't seen the inside of it. Okay. Does it bother you at all? Or I'm sure you've had people say, Brandon, if you're going to buy a piece of real estate, you got to see the inside of it. So was that ever like a concern for you?
No, I just think, I just had too many options for it to really go wrong, especially at that
Yeah.
price. Because, man, I was literally dead set. I ran all the math on it. I was dead set on clearing that lot off because it's 2 acres, has a pond on it. And so
Cool.
it'd be nice for a, brand new mobile home to get put on there and, retail out of it. So, like when I say I haven't seen the inside of it, I haven't even seen pictures of the inside. I didn't get inspection done, anything like that. Um, so it's just in my mind, it really couldn't go too wrong at that price point.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. So how did it feel getting that first deal done?
Um, I don't. I mean, it wasn't as exhilarating as I thought it would be. It was definitely cool just to say I own a house. But it's not something I was going to go show a picture to somebody of.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a good feeling seeing everything kind of come true and go through the process as you taught us. So it's definitely a good feeling.
Right on. But whenever you got into the end zone, you acted like you've been there before.
Right.
Okay, fantastic. All right, cool. So deal number one, you got that done. Probably have a little bit more confidence. You did well, got it done. Then we get the call for deal number two. So kind of walk me through that.
Yeah. All right. So it's a Thursday, probably around noon. I get a call
Okay.
saying, "Hey, I need to sell my house and get money for it, or Monday at 9 a.m. I go to jail." That was the
That's
call.
what we call a motivated seller. Yes.
Yeah. So that was the call I got. And so it was a duplex. Literally, it's on the same street that I live on at college, that I'm renting here. And so we just kind of went at it. So what we called a title company here in Statesboro to get a title search done. And so we actually got that title search back in a day, which is absolutely unheard of. And so, it's kind
Yeah.
of already off to a good start. And so, I had to obviously there wasn't any title companies or attorneys in the area that knew how to do subject to transactions. So the closest one was Augusta, which is about hour and a half from where we are. Um, and so they weren't able to draw up, paperwork or anything like that within a day and a half to close. It basically have to be that next day on Friday for him to get that money. And so the weekend comes around and, he's obviously in kind of a panic saying he doesn't want to sell me the house anymore. He'd rather just, go to jail, all that stuff. He's kind of freaking out, flip-flopping back and forth. And so it's like, all right, like, let me see what I can do. And so I'm kind of making phone calls that Friday and that weekend. And it turns out the attorney or the title company that we did the title search with was the same one that was representing the Department of Child Services and was trying to put him in jail. So that Monday at like 8 o'clock, as soon as their office opened, I called, of course you don't reach the attorney, their secretary answers saying, hey, she's in court right now. She can't talk. I know she's in court. I need to get a hold of her because, it's about like why she's in court at 9 a.m. And I asked her like, hey, here's the paperwork that we're trying to raise funds for the house. If you can postpone this, he can pay that child support and, he doesn't have to go to jail. So, win-win for everybody. And so she ended up postponing it for, I don't know how long it was, maybe 30 days, but we ended up closing later that week. And so, yeah, that was my first subject to deal. I think it was, 6 grand to the seller, so like 8 grand total with closing cost, and then took over a mortgage payment of $500 a month. And when that's all said and done, I'm still renovating it right now. Just kind of have something to do during the day since it's so close, and that'll probably bring in, $1,400 a month in rent.
Okay. So 1,400 gross rent. You said the underlying mortgage payment was how much?
It's technically like 381, but he's a lot of money behind on his mortgage payments. And so they kind of worked out a deal where if you pay, $500 a month, you don't have to catch up the loan right away. So that's a pretty sweet deal on my end as well.
Okay, cool. So it looks like we're at 1,500 per month in gross cash flow on the first two deals.
Right.
Okay, cool. Whenever that seller called in, I mean, obviously you had a motivated person, but how did you know quickly that you had a deal good enough to where it was time to go to title that quick?
Um, Honestly, we did. Now that I think about it, we actually did do everything backwards. I think we ran a title search on it before I had it under contract, just because I knew they would sell it to me, because that was really their only option. But I would never do that again, looking back at it. But and with that little money out of pocket, again, I was fine with making it a rental, or worst comes to worst, I can turn around and owner finance it to investor in the college town. So it was a pretty good deal. The ARV was, I think, around 130, 140, and contract sales price all in total was around like 68. So
Okay, cool. So you got about 70K in equity. You captured 70K in equity with about 6K out of pocket, and you're cash flowing, roughly $1,000 a month on that 6K. So I mean, return on cash out of control. Your equity position based on the cash, really, really good. Um, really good second deal. Were you at all hesitant to, because I remember me and you have talked about this deal before, calling the attorney's office that morning and saying, no, you've got to get to this attorney right now. I feel like whenever I was 20, 21 years old, I'd have been a little hesitant to be ordering attorneys around. But tell me about that, man.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. Honestly, I didn't think too much about it. I guess I was dealing with attorneys on that past deal. Um, And so I was also talking with those the attorneys from Augusta. So it was just kind of another phone call I had to make. So I didn't really think too much of it, to be honest.
That's good. Sometimes it's good not to think, just do. Cool. So got that deal. Tell me about deal number three.
Um, three. I'm pretty sure that was that. I think that was my first flip. It was a mobile home in Lake Charles, Louisiana. They called me saying, they never planned on moving They had this house, they renovated it, new roof, new floors, like new everything. And they never planned on moving, but they got like a really good job offer in Texas. They're welders, so they're working for ExxonMobil. And so they
Mm.
said, we need to leave within a couple weeks. And they said they were trying to list it with a real estate agent. And they told me, they're like, look, you can get $120,000 for this house. But we'll take they started at 80, got them down to 70. So that they said, well, we'll take $70,000. Like, I know you can list this house for 120. Here's the real estate agent. She's like number one in Louisiana for the past 3 years. I was like, all right, I'll based off that, I'll take your word for it. I'll, put it under contract. And so I ended up calling that real estate agent, and she's like, no, like we can't do it for 120. Like we'll actually list it for 150. And I was like, all right, that works for me. So that was a pretty sweet deal. I had some hiccups on it. I think there was like 3 hurricanes and a snowstorm in between buying and selling, which was just a lot of fun. Yeah, that was my first flip. It was about 10,000 in rehab. So pretty light there, nothing too crazy, just kind of painting and some foundation issues. Obviously, it's an old mobile home, so that's gonna happen. So yeah, that was my first flip. I think that was my third deal.
Okay, cool. So you bought it for 70. Were you paying cash on the 70? Did you get hard money on the 70? Like, how did that work?
Yeah, I got private money on the 70 plus. I think it was 80 total.
Okay.
And so for to cover their repairs and everything like that, and then sold it for it was 143.5 was the sale price of that.
143.5. So what was your net ballpark on that? 40, 50K?
Yeah, and that was in between 45 and 50. I think it was like 47, 49 maybe.
Okay, cool. Now, refresh my memory. What were you going to school for?
I was in finance.
Okay. And I have no idea. My background was accounting, my undergraduate, and I lasted in accounting for like 33 days uh, before I went back into selling real estate because I'm just not an accountant. What do people in finance come out of college making?
Yeah, all my friends right now, they're seeing, I had when I was, it's anywhere from like 50 to 60 starting off. I think my one job offer I had out of college was 50,000. And so
Okay.
having that flip come in at 49,000 as my first, net deal was kind of eye-opening.
Well, didn't it kind of piss you off though that it wasn't 51? I mean,
Yeah.
I think I would have to like come like y'all pay me another 1,500 bucks or something because I have this arbitrary goal of like first flip deal is more than what I would have made in finance.
Yeah, and I guess the rent from the other property kind of pushed it over the edge.
There we go. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm not thinking about the other equity. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, cool. So what I guess you mentioned the weather challenges. Did you run into any other challenges on that deal?
Um, I'm sure it was a bunch of small things that, I thought were big at the time, but it was just something else you kind of had to figure out. Obviously it's a whole learning process. I've never dealt with mobile homes. I
Hmm.
guess the first one was a mobile home, but I wasn't retailing out of it. So there was all sorts of, things like elevation certificates and, is FHA then a lend on, a mobile home in a floodplain? Uh,
Right.
that was a pretty big hiccup. But ended up all working out for the better. But I'm sure there's a bunch of small things, kind of dealing with contractors. It comes closing time, they do their final inspection, and there's a broken window that wasn't fixed. It's like great. So now I got to go back and
Yeah.
do that. So just a bunch of little things, nothing too crazy because obviously the deal went through.
Yeah, right on. That makes sense. All right, cool. I'm not really sure where we're at in the number of deals or whatever, but what else do we have that's closed out or that you have purchased right now?
Yeah, so I think the next one after that, this is probably my best deal. I don't know if it's my best, but it's definitely one of my coolest. So I get a call. We were in we were in the middle of Atlanta because I filmed for our football team, so we were playing Georgia State, and I get a call at like 9:30. This I'll kind of sum it up. I bought 3 houses for $27,000. They're 3-1 brick houses in Shreveport, Louisiana. Each of them pay 550 in rent. And so I got 20 grand in private money. So I pay him, $167 a month because it's at 10% interest. And then I bring in $1,600 a month. and rent. So it just kind of just cash flows. And my plan was they are the same thing. They already had tenants in them. My plan was to owner finance them to the tenants. And they were open for it. They just didn't have a down payment. So they're just, still paying me rent. I'm not gonna, fix something that isn't broken, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so it was 550 in rent per unit.
Yeah, and it's 550 in rent per house, so it's 1,600, a little over 1,600,
Okay, and then how much was the payment to the private money?
$167.
Okay. What did they put that on, like a 40-year term? I'm just kidding. Um, it's so funny. Like I hate receiving payments that are under 300 bucks. But okay, cool. So now we're at 2,983 gross rent. Okay. I mean, dude, I think your first year you're going to have enough in cash flow to cover what you would have made, uh, being whatever you're going to be in finance.
Yeah, that's definitely the goal. And this week, this was a good week. Yeah, today's Tuesday. So yesterday, I closed out on that sub two wrap that we were talking about. So purchase price on that was the underlying note that I took over at 2.75%. That PI payment is $671. And then I turned around and owner financed it with a new note at $210,000 at 9.99%. So it's 60K in equity in the note, and then the new monthly payment, I'll cash flow around $1,200.
So 1,200 in cash flow there. So we're now at approximately 4,200 in cash flow. What other cash flow you got, dude? I didn't even know about that one.
Yeah, no, that was my newest one, but yeah, yesterday that I closed on that one yesterday, and then also accepted a full price offer on one of my flips in Texas. So I'll be out of inventory when that one closes.
Okay, cool. So are your ads still running or are your ads off right now?
I just started them up literally yesterday. I started them back up.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to say. I've been doing this for I started 7 months ago, but I haven't been really doing it for 7 months. I ran ads for 2.5 months, July, August, half of September, and then I cut them off just because I kind of wanted to get rid of properties. And then I kind of coasted until December, and then January came around and I cut them off January 28th. So I spent, I think, $1,800 in ads, and then bought that sub two wrap, which was like a 60K equity grab, which cash flows 1,200 a month. And then this flip, I'll probably net around 30 to 40. So it's a pretty good return on ads.
So how much have you spent in ads total? Like
Little under
not
eight,
much. A little over 8 grand, you said?
under 8 grand, yeah.
Okay, cool. And that's usually around 4 deals. Has that been your experience as well?
I mean, it's been all of mine. So it'd be,
Oh,
yeah.
so you're including the bandit signs and ads as well.
No, I mean, it's sick. It was a little under 8 grand, all my PPC marketing, and that bought all but two houses. So that would be, there's a wholesale deal that was like tiny. Um, that was like a couple grand, but that would be the one in Texas, one in Alabama, four in Louisiana. So yeah, five houses on that 8 grand.
Okay, cool. I mean, that's pretty strong, man. So I mean, one thing I'm going to recommend you to do is I think you did the right thing by letting this cash roll in because I mean that's going to put you in a position to reset. But when ads are working, I recommend never turning them off. You can turn them down, never turn them off because at the point that things are working really, really well, um, and we turn it off, what you're doing is you're creating feast famine cycles. You see what I'm saying? And so like you did that on purpose, and I think that there are times, especially for you, like it makes sense. You're at the very early stages of this, but you know, I hate what makes me sick. It's like we've captured 300K ballpark in equity position so far. We probably could have been at 700, 6 or 700 had we kept rolling. But there's a difference. Like I've never been the person that optimizes. So what you did is you optimized. You said, hey, let's have lifestyle. You're still finishing college at this time. A lot of it, traveling with the football team, doing the video work. Like you're doing this part time anyway. um, I was a maximizer. It was always, there was no brake in the car. There was always gas. You know what I mean? Like there was no slowing down. And we have to have both to, you know, uh, with only a brake, you don't go anywhere, but with only a gas pedal, you kill yourself. So, I think it was good for you to slow things down, but, I think about the stuff that we could have bought too. Um, what's the plan from here, man? I mean, I think you probably have, I don't know. I mean, did you have a goal for your first year of implementation?
To be honest, I didn't. I kind of wanted to see where it went. I mean, I was definitely after cash flow. That was my main thing. So that kind of worked out well. Obviously you don't get to pick the deals that you do. But it kind of worked out where the some of the flips can kind of, fund the cash flow. So I mean, I honestly didn't really have a goal. I think 5 grand a month, that sounds familiar, which I'll hopefully hit pretty soon. But yeah, I don't think I wrote anything down as far as the, real estate side goes.
Yeah. Well, I think for most people, they would look at your trajectory of the first year, and I would say for most people, it overshadows what they were hoping to accomplish. And so, what has been either surprising or maybe, I guess, maybe the most difficult part of this?
Um, difficult. I think, difficult and things being hard is kind of like a, very relative term. That I feel like everything is hard when you don't know how to do it. And as soon as you do it, it's just something else that it'd be second nature. Um, but, I think, if the thing I least like about it is, the speed to lead on the PPC side of it, kind of respond to those leads pretty quickly. Again, that's all part of it though. They're never at a convenient time. It's never when you're at your desk ready for them. It's, when you're at dinner and, that you get a lead coming in. I guess that's kind of, the hardest part of it. But I mean, I don't really view, I mean, if I can get something done and and it's like a problem, I don't really view it as, being difficult or being hard just because I know I'd be able to, get through it. I have that support system behind me, whether it's my parents or the group or, friends and family that, have experience with that. I don't really view it as it being difficult. It's just something else I got to learn and, I'll be better at for the future. But yeah, it's just something else to overcome.
Yeah, 100%, man. Uh, I heard somewhere, you choose your hard. Being fit is hard, but being fat is hard. Having an amazing marriage is hard. Being single the rest of your life is hard. Being wealthy is hard, but being poor is hard. You just pick the hard. A lot of people, man, they think, gosh, it's really tough to find deals. Speak to that.
Yeah. I think you touch on this. You're going to buy the time that you buy the most amount of deals is when you don't want to buy, any houses. And that's just, if you have the right, system set up, you're going to have, people literally trying to throw you the keys to their house. Today I was on a perfect presentation and I was honestly just doing it for the reps again. And,
Hmm.
she was way over 70%. And I think ARV is like, 165 and she was asking, I think like 150. And so we never make offers. We don't do anything like that. And like, as I'm going through saying, oh, like, I don't want to give you a dirty low ball offer. Like I can't even finish that sentence. And she's going, all right, what about 140, 130, 120, 125? Like she just keeps dropping the price. So like they're out there. It's crazy. Like you're only like surrounded by the people, like you're around. Like so you don't really see all these groups of people that need to sell their house. And that was kind of my biggest thing with when people ask me if like you need a lot of money to get into real estate, like how do you find lenders, how do you do everything like that. It was kind of eye-opening to me on the lending side. I was at one of y'all's like scale events and everybody, I'm not going to name names, but everybody was going around the table saying, hey, what's like your biggest problem in your business. And one of the guys said, hey, I have too much money. Everybody kind of laughs. But now, like genuinely, like I have too much money. Like I need to, like I don't have enough people to lend this money out to, where you guys are
Yeah.
in a room where you're looking for money. I'm in a room where people I'm trying to give money out to. So it's just always you just don't see everything else. There's always people trying to sell their house, or always people trying to give you money. It's just, connecting to the right people, really just plugs everything together.
Yeah, 100%. You mentioned negotiation, and I think I know the answer to this, but if it is indeed this deal, I think it's a great story. What's been your favorite negotiation so far?
Yeah, it would definitely be that sub two wrap that just closed yesterday.
Okay, so that's that one.
Yeah, that's that one. So that one, it was kind of like a long buying process, just because the seller had to, ask for a mortgage statement. He wasn't very tech savvy. And so do the triage call, I, do the perfect presentation, and I pitch him on, subject to. That was really the only way I could, purchase the property comfortably. And so I think it was like 19 grand walk away, and then, taking over that existing mortgage of 150. And so he was fine with it. He's like, you know what, like my credit shot anyways. I can't buy another house. I'm just gonna take that money, buy a camper, travel the world, do my thing. And so he's like, all right, I just really want my brother to be on the call. So, can we reschedule for tomorrow? And so I mean, I did mess up. I should have had his brother there. I should have asked him, um, if there's any other decision makers, but he just really wanted to be with his brother. I was like, okay, that's
Hmm.
fine. It turns out his brother's was a commercial real estate attorney, and so he was just hammering me with questions, just one after another. Um, yeah,
Now, hang on real quick. So, why would a commercial real estate attorney have questions about how you're structuring this deal? Like, what? It's not even weird, right?
yeah. I mean, it's just one of those things that they haven't heard of it. They've never heard of, subject to, and so that was just completely foreign to them. And so he just asked me all sorts of questions. He wanted me to sign like an indemnity agreement saying like, I'm personally responsible for that debt now, and all sorts of other things that just really didn't make sense. And so I remember talking to you about it, and you just said like, just pretend like you're running away. Just say, hey, you know what? Like, you guys aren't comfortable with this. Let's not do this. I
Yeah.
can buy the house cash, or you can list it with a realtor. And so I remember I got back on that call. I had to start off saying, hey, I've had some time to think about it. I think, obviously you aren't comfortable with this. It seems like your brother kind of wants you to, maybe not walk away with as much money, but, he'll be comfortable with it. So I hope you are as well. I'm good to say, we're friends at the end of the day, and, I'll help you the best I can. But, let's just not do this, because, I mean, you guys have plenty of other options. Like, you can go and list it with a realtor, or I can buy it all cash. Like, I'd love to buy it all cash. And so he was like, okay, how much would it be all cash? And he would basically be having to stroke me a check at closing. And
Hmm.
I ran him through the number section again. And there was some silence, and he said, okay, so how does this taking over payments thing work again? So it just kind of went back from there. He was open to it, just because that's just part of the negotiation. People want what they can't have. They're just going to chase you if you run. So he kind of realized that was his only option, and went well from there.
Well, and it did, and I think I told you you have a 90% chance, but you got to run like hell away from it,
Absolutely.
which is not a comfortable thing when you feel like you're potentially running away from 60 grand. You guys with me on that? So, three rules of social value: people want what they can't have, people chase what moves away from them, and people value what they pay for. Okay, so like we're in a position where now let's talk about third parties for a second. The third party that I want them to go to is their CPA, if it's a some now, some later deal, because an accountant will do anything to save tax liability. They will give you a 0% interest loan, whatever, for 20 years if you can just get that marginal tax rate down. And that makes no financial sense. But like that's the third party that we want a seller to go to. In this scenario, we had an attorney that's a brother, and so there's no way that we can battle that by saying, well, your brother doesn't know what they're talking about, all of this. The best thing, the thing that we can do is be like, hey, we want the best thing for you. Sounds like that's not this. We can absolutely pay cash. It's just not at this price. Do you want to have a conversation around that? Yeah, let's have the conversation around that. Go through the numbers section of the perfect presentation. Got down to a number that he's not going to be comfortable with. And then the only other option realistically is to go with deal structure, which is what Brandon said. Were you uncomfortable at all running away from that the way that you had to do to create social value and frame to where you had a chance at it?
No, it's funny. It was honestly one of those things. I kind of went on the call just trying to stick it to the brother, just saying that like, hey, your brother's the reason why you're not going to be walking away with any money. So that was genuinely my goal, walking into
I
that
love it.
call. And so once it kind of started to turn, I was like, oh, wait a minute, let me get back on script here. But yeah, I wasn't really too worried about it just because I planned on running away. The brother was going to say no if I didn't do that. So really
Yeah, that's it.
was there.
Yeah. And guys, I didn't realize this until there was a point in maybe 2017 where I'd kind of outkicked my coverage. I'd bought too many houses, but I'd committed to go to houses and meet with people. And so I was literally like knocking on the front door where I would usually say, hey, I'm Brad, I'm here to buy the house. It would be like, hey, I'm Brad, I'm here for a 12 o'clock appointment. I actually can't buy the house because I bought other property. And people would like almost chase you down to sell you the house because you told them that you can't buy it, you know? And I realized that at that point, if you're a don't wanter, then that's the best possible frame that you can have, you know? And so anytime that we're in a position where someone's kind of moving away from us or they want to go a different direction, you have to pull back. Okay. It's just good negotiation. The person that wants the deal the least controls the negotiation. Okay. And, I think you did an amazing job on that. And guys, if you have any questions for Brandon, hit me in the chat. Um, Final thoughts on anything, man. I mean, you've come a long way real fast. Kind of tell me what's next for you, kind of what your plans are, and any final thoughts for you.
Um, I guess, plans are once my lease ends, it's been my kind of my dream to move to Florida. So I kind of settled on moving to that St. Pete, Tampa area.
Yeah,
So it's been my dream for a long time. So if we're gonna make that happen come July. But yeah, I just started back up my ads yesterday. So kind of going head first again, buying some more houses, make some more money. Just kind of just go from there.
cool, man. I love it. Well, man, dude, I appreciate you so much. Appreciate you being on. It's so much fun to see the growth that people have and to be a small part of what you're doing. It's just so much fun for me. So thanks for doing this, man. I know that you have other things that you could be doing on a Tuesday night at your age, but you're here talking about real estate. So we appreciate you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. All right, guys, if we can help you, let us know. You can email me direct, brad@bradsmotherman.com. Be sure and check us out on Podcast Investor Creator and Investor Creators Deals. Thank you guys for being here. We'll catch you guys next time.